It's Alicia here with my work basket. Today is a Saturday, which is when I record most of my videos. Mostly because that's when my craft room table is a little bit more clean and I have more time to dedicate to it. Today, I've got a couple things to talk to you about. My new sewing machine needles came for the antique sewing machine, so we're going to try and kind of get that going. And when I go to do that, I will show you how those needles compare in length to the usual standard needle now, and you'll kind of get an idea of what I was saying about how long they are. I'm going to talk to you about a challenge I'm giving myself over the summer. I'm going to talk to you a bit about, like, I don't know, just kind of some personal stuff. And I'm going to talk to you about projects I'm sick of. Do you ever have a project that you are just like, oh my God, I am so sick of this project? Well, first of all, I will be honest and tell you, I get that way about any project that takes more than like 2 hours. Like, there's a reason I make more hats than sweaters, because I get sick of projects really fast. Usually if I'm making a hat, before the hat is finished, I'm sick of making that hat. This cushion cover. I am so sick of making this cushion cover. I'm sick of the two colors. I am sick of weaving squares. And part of it is because the whole project was kind of a like throw together. If it had been something I was super excited about to begin with, I'd get a little bit more time out of it. But this was a project I started in a previous video to show you how to weave squares on a potholder loom. And it quickly turned into like, oh, this is fun. Let's do more. Oh, I'll make a cushion cover. And it grew each time. So when I started the project, I thought I was going to need, and I've talked about this in a previous video, so forgive me if you've heard this already, but if you're new, I thought I was going to need a 3x3. I thought it was 9 squares. I was going from memory. And then I was like, okay, 12x12. I mean, 4x4, 12 squares, right? 16 squares. No, it is not 16 squares. I still need a whole nother row of squares all the way around. It needs to be, what is that, like 25 squares, 5x5. And I'm really sick of doing it. I'm really sick of making these squares and making this cushion cover. So I've been trying to kind of crank it out. I did come to a problem, which is the yarn that I started with was already partially used skein, and it is done. I have this much yellow yarn left. However, I needed 4 or 5 squares depending on where I put, and I made 2 squares. So I have to decide if I want to open up a whole new skein of yellow or kind of how I want to do that. I do have other colors, but most of the squares are already together. So I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet about, like, do I really want to open another skein? Right now, I have a skein of yellow, untouched, full skein. Once I crack it open and make 2 squares, it's not a full skein anymore. And then that affects, you know, next project, I run out 2 squares early. And so I'm kind of thinking, what if I do one more row, do a sewn back, and it's a feather pillow, and I just stuff that sucker in there and make it super poofy. That might work, right? So that might work. So I have the last of my yellow squares that I can manage to make. I have my green. If need be, I'm thinking I can make kind of a corner square that's like yellow and green, like 1 2-colored square in the whole thing. I don't know. I'm going to try and make it work, and I'm going to try and get it done. I have my green yarn, which hopefully I get at least 2 squares out of my green. And then from there, we will see what happens with my project. I really want it to be finished today. At least the crochet squares part, because I'm just so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. Again, I admit I get sick of projects really quick. It's like a huge issue for me. So while I work on cranking out as many green squares as I can manage to crank out today, I'm just going to chat with you about some other stuff. So the green square is going to be in front of me. I do have a video that I posted recently. It is on my feed. It's under tutorials and vlog, I think, if you go to playlists, about how to use a potholder loom to make squares out of yarn. My cat just came like flying in the corner. It is rainy here today, So I turned a light. I hope the light's kind of okay in the video for you. So if you want to do a similar project or blankets of a similar project, I mean, like, the squares are useful. I love doing the squares, although I'm sick of doing squares right now. So I'll talk to you about a couple other things. As you can see, I'm wearing glasses today. I don't usually wear glasses, I think, in my videos. I am technically supposed to wear glasses. In previous years, I've worn glasses for probably about 10 years. My prescription is extremely mild. At least it has always been extremely mild. And the only reason I even had glasses was to try to prevent headaches. So unless I was doing like a lot of reading, writing, a lot of computer work, things like that, I just honestly usually forgot to wear my glasses. For a long time, I did wear my glasses all day, every day. And then I just kind of stepped away from that and wore them when I remembered them. And I didn't really feel any difference when it came to things like headaches or eye fatigue or whatever. So I just kind of stuck with that. But my family had our eye exams this week. And my glasses prescription is still very mild. It's not even like 1 full percent or whatever. It's like 0.75. I mean, it's like still a pretty mild prescription. But I'm going to tell you, this was like terrifying to me, okay? So my whole family had our eye exam. My son went first. Well, my husband went first and then my son. And then I did like the pre-exam where they have you read some of the stuff and they take pictures of your eyeballs and whatnot. And they're like, okay, cover your left eye. And I'm reading on the wall. They say read the lowest one you can. And let me tell you, I couldn't hardly see any of them. Like usually I read like the very bottom row and they're like, okay, good. So I seriously was like, I felt like I couldn't see any of them. It was really freaking me out. And it was especially freaking me out because I get headaches. I suffer from migraines. I get cluster headaches. And I've had like the longest cluster headache I've ever had just a few weeks ago where it actually usually I have like a cluster or like an hour of cluster. I mean, like, it's not, I had like 2 to 3 days of like clusters of a cluster headache, which has like never happened to me before. And I was like, and then I can't see out of the eye. And this is the eye where I get the cluster headaches, like right here. I thought something was wrong with me. Like, I thought they were going to take the picture of my eyeball and be like, oh my gosh, you have like a gigantic tumor. I was really freaking out because like this one eye, everything was so blurry. And I did the left eye and I'm reading like the bottom row. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? So I was really freaking out. And I told the eye doctor when it was time to start my actual exam, I was like, I'm kind of scared because my one eye didn't work so well in the pre-exam. And that doesn't usually happen to me. So my one eye either has like developed or is a problem now in astigmatism. So yeah, so my eyeglasses now, these are actually old ones. My new ones aren't in yet, but it just became more apparent. I really need to go back to wearing my glasses like all the time now. So I'm trying to build that habit with an older pair of glasses and also try to just prevent that eye strain. And man, you guys, I was worried. I was like, watch them find something crazy in this eye exam because my one eye just wouldn't hardly work. But yeah, so one eye has like a mild, it's a fairly mild astigmatism too. Like, I'll tell you, I feel kind of bad for you guys who have bad vision or bad astigmatisms because it really freaked me out. But, so I'm trying to get in the habit of wearing my glasses again. So you'll be seeing my glasses in videos now. My new pair, I'm super excited. They're, we only go to America's Best. I mean, like, I don't pay a lot for eyeglasses, but they're kind of like a retro brown. I'm excited about them. I forget what I was talking about before my eyes. So, let's see. Also, one subject. What did I want to talk to you about today? I am doing a challenge. If you know me, or if you've watched the channel for, even like a video, like, I have a bit of a shopping problem, a buying problem. And it's not in a, like, a financial, like, I spend too much money. I mean, I don't know if you guys if anybody here has ever watched the old show Dharma and Greg. There's an episode where Dharma and Greg talk about how they both spend money differently. And this is actually very much similar to how my husband and I spend money, because, no joke, my husband and I are Dharma and Greg. So in the show, Dharma bought a gigantic, I mean, it's like human-sized papier-mâché sculpture of a cat. And because she spent all of her money on this cat, she had to eat ramen noodles. That's how I am. I'm like, I buy what I want to buy, and then I suffer in other ways to make up for it. It's not the greatest method. It works for me. So it's not like a financial issue of how much money I spend. I'm not like on the verge of bankruptcy or whatever. I just, in the quantity of stuff category, it gets a bit crazy. And I'm happy with a pretty healthy amount of stuff. I am more open to having stuff and clutter than a lot of people. I never in this life will be a minimalist, but I just have a lot of stuff. And I have a lot of craft stuff to the point that sometimes it's almost overwhelming what to make, what colors to use, what yarn to use. And this is going to circle back a minute to another subject I'm going to talk about today. This is going to be a very chatty video. I'm going to tell you that. This is the type of video you could like totally put on in the background and work along with me, because I'm just going to be talking a lot. So I'm going to do a challenge. I'm not good at naming stuff, but I am naming this the Summer of Stash. And what that is it is the end of May. It's Memorial Day weekend, this weekend. So it is, you know, the figurative beginning of summer. I am not going to buy any craft supplies until fall, September 1st. And that includes supplies. So smart goals, you know, keep it reasonable. So the idea of me going all of June, July, and August without buying anything crafty is pretty much impossible. So I'd be setting myself up for failure if I was like, I'm buying nothing craft related. That would not happen. I might make it a day. I mean, like, it's bad, y'all. So I'm going to allow certain tool purchases, tools, gadget. I mean, like, I don't know what. I just want to have a window of opportunity to do things. I also will still allow myself to buy new books, booklets, or magazines. So essentially printed goods, patterns, and things like that. Magazines for my collection, tools. That's it. So my friend and I have talked about doing kind of like a monthly trip to like Scrap Beam, or my birthday is this summer. You know, my family usually gets me craft stuff. So I want there to be a window of opportunity that I can still get stuff. Honestly, now that I've been to Scrap Beam more, I don't want to go all summer without going back. I really like it there. So I want the opportunity to allow myself to get stuff. What those tools or gadgets are, I don't know. We'll see. But I wanted to allow myself a possibility of escaping the rules, I guess. I told my husband my idea, and he is going to give me, we called them 3 vetoes. So the whole challenge is that I cannot buy any craft supplies. So ribbon, glitter, sewing thread, embroidery floss, yarn, fabrics, wool. I'm looking around at just stuff I have, like supplies. I cannot buy any supplies. Rubber stamps, embellishments, embossing powder. I do so many crafts. There's so many things I can list. I can't buy any of those until September. But I brought it up with my husband. I was like, what about projects in progress? Like, you know, so I'm making this blanket for my son. And I'm like, what if I legitimately run out of the thread that I'm using, which is really just crochet thread? What if I actually legitimately run out? Should I be allowed to buy more, or should the project have to wait? So my husband has the power of 3 vetoes. So if I reach a point in a project where I feel like I absolutely cannot progress, I can approach him and he can give me permission. Only he's doing this to help me out. It's not like a control thing. Like, I don't want comments of like, your husband shouldn't tell you what to do. Like, no, I've asked him to do this for me. This is like an agreed upon deal. He can give me permission or not to buy said item. So say, for example, the example of my son's blanket. Say I run out of thread, the right kind or the right color. I can approach my husband and I have to state my case as to why I need to buy more. Let me tell you guys, the amount of stuff that I own is insane. So like, You see the walls behind me, and some of this is homeschool stuff. So this pile is all homeschool. That pile is all art. Those piles are all art. And all 4 walls in the room I'm in are pretty much like that. My whole house is practically like this. So, and I don't say this in a cocky way, but like my skill level is far beyond what I allow myself to go to. So for the subject of like my son's blanket, let's say I'm out of crochet thread that I'm using to sew his project together. I'm going to tell you right now 2 things about me, and that is that I tend to be lazy and I don't tend to push myself to all that I'm capable of. I don't know why for either one of those things. I just am. But so say that I'm making my son's blanket. I don't want to be able to say, oh, I'm out of thread, I need to go buy more. But in reality, what I need to do is take some thread I already have and dye it, which is something I'm very capable of doing. I dye fabrics and wools and yarn. I mean, like, I know how to dye. I just don't most of the time. So I want that in there to push myself to do it. So before I approach my husband with like, oh, I need to buy yarn for this project, I want to have to push myself to, can I work with what I've got and make it with, you know, by utilizing the skills that I have and never use. So I am doing the Summer of Stash. Terrible name, but a necessary thing. I wouldn't say I'm excited. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm like freaking nervous. The idea of going all summer without buying craft stuff. I was telling my husband, I'm very much one of those people where buying craft supplies and using craft supplies are like 2 different hobbies for me. They're not even the same hobby for me. It's like 2 different hobbies. I'm not into fashion. I'm not into clothes, shoes. I don't wear makeup. I own some like powder makeup I bought for when I do videos and I never use them. Like, I think it's downstairs by my dining room chair. Like, so what I will potentially spend money on without craft supplies, I don't really know. There may be several more huge box lots of magazines in my future just because it's the one thing I allowed myself. I don't really know. I can't say I'm super excited to do this Summer of Stash. I think it's necessary. And I think it's necessary for multiple reasons. And one of them being the one I just pointed out to you. You know, look around here. So the other one is, this was another subject I want to chat about. I've been struggling with this, and I think a lot of people struggle with this. The key word now, if you're doing anything artsy as kind of a business or any kind of business, your brand. What's your brand? What's your brand? And, you know, I have goals in my life related to craft or related to being an artisan. You know, this channel, being a YouTuber is not like my top dream goal, but I want to be an artist. I want to be an artisan. I want to have a name for myself in like the crafty artistic world. And there's a lot of ways that I'd be content with as like an end result. But when you have any variety of business, when you have any variety of crafty stuff, even people who just want to like be Instagram famous, which is another thing I don't care. I post on Instagram, like, don't get me wrong, but like that's not, you know, being Instagram famous is not like my goal in life. But people talk about your brand, and I hate buzzwords, I hate keywords. But let's be honest about the fact that all a brand really is your look, your vibe. And that's a valid thing. Like, you look at a Picasso and you know it's a Picasso. You look at a drawing by Leonardo da Vinci and you can tell it's a drawing by Leonardo da Vinci. You look at a Van Gogh and you can tell it's a Van Gogh. Or in the crafty world, you look at Mary Engelbreit, she's like a goddess to me. Like, she's everything I want to be in my life. You look at something by Mary Engelbreit and you know it's a Mary Engelbreit. And I don't know what that is for me. I mean, like, I do a lot of crafts, and some people are like, oh, you should niche down, you know, do a craft. I can tell you right now, I'm not going to be one of those people who does a single craft. You will never tune to this YouTube channel and I've done absolutely nothing but crochet videos for like a year. Like, that's not who I am. The possibility of picking a single craft and only doing that craft is not something that this girl will ever, ever, ever do. These glasses are too, like, loose on my bridge. You notice how much I have to push them up? So I will never, ever, ever do a single craft. I'm always going to be a multiple craft kind of gal. But I got to do something where I figure out what my brand looks like. What is my look? What is my vibe? What is my color family? And the tricky thing with this is I make things for my son. I make things for my husband. We are very different people. My son and I especially. The other day I was buying my son some hats. They're slap caps for like sleeping in. And he wanted the super basic, like 4-pack, navy, blue, burgundy, black. And I was like, but look, they have these crazy patterns, you know. And, you know, like I would be the person, I'd go right for the crazy patterns. I'd go right for the bright colors. And he is not. He wanted like the most boring, to me, boring packet that they had. And that's kind of what I'm working with here. Is it's like the wool blend fabrics that I'm using for his blanket. I was going to dye them. I was going to dye them like crazy colors and then use that wool for something. But when I decided, hey, I was going to do it for him, I knew it needed to kind of be the colors that it was, you know. So it's tricky for me to know my brand when I'm also working and making things for people who are not the same as me. Like if I made my husband the same thing I'd make myself, you guys, I just can't even, like, so that's something I struggle with, of like, what is my look? And whether that be a style, a colorway, you know, I mean, I need to figure out what that looks like for me. And I'm hoping that the Summer of Stash helps me with that. I'm hoping that by forcing myself out of my comfort zone and not just constantly buying new materials, I'm hoping that I can push myself to discover what my style and what my method really is. And by the end of the summer, I'm hoping that I will have established that a little bit more, maybe helped figure out stash-wise, either helped use up materials that are not in that vibe, or, you know, maybe know what I just need to get rid of. What am I never going to use and donate? Because if I'm doing stash only for a whole summer and something's still sitting here at the end, you know, that might be a sign that it just really isn't right for me. And that's what I need to get rid of and declutter. Because I really struggle because of the variety of stuff I do, and because I do so many different styles, different colors, because I don't have this constant thing that I fall back on. I feel like I use everything, and to get rid of anything feels tricky because I feel like anything, any color, any style could be the thing I need for my next project. So I'm really hoping that the Summer of Stash helps me in that way to like work through what is the Alicia Simon brand, what is my work basket's colors, what is my style, and help at the end of the summer to know more of what that is and get rid of more of the stuff that doesn't fit it. And also maybe know more of like what obviously needs replaced. What did I use all summer long and I just straight busted my stash of and need more of? And there's going to be a certain amount of projects I do that are solely for some stash busting. I want to actually make some very scrappy, large style, like large block style quilts to help bust my fabric stash, you know. So I'm not necessarily using that as an example of like, oh, I've used up all my fabric, I clearly should spend more money on fabric. But if I've used all the fabrics of, you know, novelty patterns, or I've used all the fabrics of solids, if I used all my, I don't think I have flannels. Half of what I'm saying to you is based on what I think I might have or think I might use. If I use like all my flannels, then I might be like, you know, I used a lot of flannel. I enjoyed using a lot of flannel. I should rebuild a stash of like more solid flannels. So, one green square done. 25 minutes of chatting and weaving. You usually it's faster if I'm not chatting at the same time. So, the summer of stash. We shall see. We shall see. I do need it though. But yeah, so I struggle a lot with branding, and it's always, I think, going to be hard for me because I do so many different types of crafts and I'm inspired by so many types of artisans. It's always tricky to kind of pin yourself down. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know about you watching this, but I'm constantly on a voyage of self-discovery. Like, for many, many years, my favorite color was blue. And then it was like, you know, I like blue and green. And now I don't know, I think I have a lot more green than blue. Like, I'm constantly changing. Several years ago, my son's 14 now, but when my son was young, I wore almost exclusively skirts, tights, and what my friends affectionately called old lady shirts, like button-up blouses. You know, like that was my style. And it felt really good. Like, I loved it. I was very happy with it. But now I wear like exclusively funny t-shirts and like pants. I mean, usually jeans. I'm just saying pants because I guess they're not all jeans. So I'm constantly changing and evolving, and I always feel like to pick craft-wise, I don't like to close doors. I don't like to feel like I'm cutting stuff out. I feel like as soon as I was like, man, I really loved working with that solid colored flannel, and I tried to like work with solid, I feel like I'd hate it. Like, the sheer act of saying, oh, this is how I like to work, I don't know. Maybe I'm disagreeable. I feel like the sheer habit of saying this is how I like to work makes me not like that work anymore. Oh, man. Yeah, that's saying I like something is a way to make me hate something, I think, sometimes. But I don't think I'm going to make it in the industry if I can't do something. You know, I gotta rein it in a bit, right? If you have thoughts on this, if anybody's watching, and like I said, this is the type of video you can absolutely have me on and kind of be doing other stuff because it's a lot of chatter. But if at any point, you know, maybe you finish watching the video, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and just like a little buzzword of branding, and let me know your thoughts. If you want to join me on the Summer of Stash, let me know on that too. I do have some crafty challenges coming up that should help me with the Summer of Stash. I'm going to be doing an Instagram challenge where you make a card every single day for the month of June, which, well, you don't have to make a card every day. You have to post a card every day on your Instagram page. I don't always get crafty time every day. So my plan is to actually make like all the cards for the week on the weekend, but then just post the pictures each day of the week. So that should help get kind of my paper stash down and just see what I like working with in the way of like paper crafts. And it can be any type of card is the thing. So it can be, because I asked, I was like, can it be an artist trading card, an enclosure card, a gift card cover, any type of card works. So I'll be doing a lot of paper crafts, and that'll help me bust some of my paper craft stash. I mean, right there. Watch if I turn the camera, I'll be able to get it back. I don't know if you can see all of this in that box. That's all scrapbook paper. Like, that's all 12 by 12 scrapbook papers. And then there's a baggie on the side that is other cuts, like 6 by 6, I think, of a type of scrapbook paper. So, you know, I've got plenty of supplies to work with for that. Stash busting. It's the summer of stash busting. Which, talking about, I mean, saying this out loud makes me realize I need to make cards this weekend because it is June in like 2 days. I think I've said on here before, I never know like what day it is. I never know the date. I usually know like if it's Monday or Tuesday. I'm not good with dates and times. So the fact that it's June in 2 days is like news to me. I sound like such a slacker, you guys. But yeah, so I need to make cards this weekend, and that card making in general should help with my summer of stash. I also did just go to Scrappy More again last weekend, 2 weekends ago, and I got some stuff because I had already dedicated myself to doing the card thing, and I was like, I like to have new stuff to work with. I mean, that's part of why I buy so much. I can't say it always benefits me, but I like to have new stuff to work with. So I was like, I'm going to get some new stuff to play around with for that. So I've literally bought stuff for what is the equivalent of a destocking challenge. I'm a mess, you guys. I'm a mess, I'm a mess, I'm a mess. I'm like halfway done my second square. Alright, when I'm done the second square, we're going to go try out the other sewing machine. I got my new needles. So I did post my new super long sewing machine needles on Instagram. My new set of sewing machine needles were $15. Just for the record, if I had purchased more than one pack at a time, it probably would have been a bit cheaper. I only bought one pack because I wanted to make sure it's the right kind before I end up with like 20, 30, 40, 100 sewing machine needles that don't fit after all. So they would have been a little bit cheaper if I had stockpiled a little bit, but I want to make sure it's the right kind before I stockpile. I did have, and I spoke about this in another video, someone offered to help me set up my machine so that I can use modern needles. And I personally chose to not do that. As long as I'm able to buy the like antique original style needles, that's what I'm intending to use. Just because I can. Why not? Sorry, that one got a bit twisted. I don't know. I feel like I've talked about everything I can talk about. Maybe I should shut the camera off until it's time for sewing. Let me weave this through and I'll do just that. Alright, I don't know if I'm going to have enough green for 3 squares. I need at least 2. We'll see. So I'm going to finish this square and then I'll come back. So I got my second green square finished. I have enough for one additional row on one side to make it a rectangle. And I actually had a lot of green yarn left. And I was about to cast on for a third green square. And then I was thinking, and I was like, not cast on, I was going to start a green square. And I was like, how do I have so much more green than yellow? And I was like, oh, you know, well, obviously, whatever project I did before, I used more yellow. And then I remembered I used the yellow to hook all the squares together. And I was like, oh, I can just keep making squares until I'm out of yarn. I cannot keep making squares until I'm out of yarn because I still have to hook the squares together. So I am going to use the tiny bit of yellow I have left. See if I can manage to hook all my squares together with this tiny bit. And then if not, some of them are going to have to be done with the green. And then we're going to see. I really don't want to open new skeins of yarn for this project. So I'm going to have to see what I can manage with just these 2 little tiny pieces left. So I'm going to hook them together. The pillow is very fluffy. So I do think, I mean, honestly, I think I could almost squish it and force it into the square I've got now. But less forcing the better, right? So I do think the extra square will help. And then, especially if I do maybe like a stretchy fabric, I don't know, that sounds a little bit crazy to me, as a back, then I think it'll work. So I'm going to hook these together and see what I'm working with. I'm very glad I remembered that I have to use the yarn to also hook it together. I have exactly this much yellow left after I hooked on some squares, and that was only because that clearly isn't enough and I had to cut into the green. So I have the whole thing, whoop, drop my crochet hook and my scissors. I have the whole thing hooked together. I'm going to have to make it work instead of doing additional rows. And the last, you know, honestly, you can't even tell the difference between where it's hooked with the green and where it's hooked with the yellow because of how it alternates. I essentially had to do this length and one of these in green. So like the last 2 squares are kind of finished off in green, and I don't even know if it's those squares. This square. But you really can't tell because of how it alternates, kind of where you picked up the color and where you... The bind off I did to hook them together, not bind off per se, the method I used to hook them together kind of worked in my favor to the fact that I ran out. So it is stretchy somewhat, and the pillow is fluffy. I don't know, hopefully it works together okay to make a finished thing. So that is that. I'm going to actually get some lunch, and then we're going to work on the new sewing machine with the new sewing machine needles. Okay, so I had lunch. Oh, the best lunch. So the short moment that I turned off my camera to work on the weaving loom, like off camera, I was watching YouTube videos because that's what I usually do while I work, and I saw the most amazing video about this like Japanese pizza rice that Domino's does, and I was like, oh, I want to do that for lunch. It was so good. I ate like way too much, but I'm gonna go work on the new sewing machine. New to me, the oldest sewing machine that I own. I'm gonna bring my camera with me. I hope I have an open pack of sewing machine needles down there in one of the drawers that I left, because I can't find an open pack in my needle bin up here. And yeah, so let's work on that. Let's sew. All right, let's get this puppy out. Do the reveal just because it's fun. And then let's get to sewing. Okay, so the camera angle here is probably a little bit weird, but I remembered that before I start trying to do any actual sewing today, I've got to get my bobbin reloaded. This machine uses an older style bobbin. It's called a vibration shuttle. So it's shaped like this. It loads here. I have successfully managed to get it loaded once, which is how I was able to kind of test the machine and practice it. I get it threaded well, but the book is very generic in explaining how to hold the thread so that it actually threads onto the bobbin. So the threading is correct, but when I start the process, you can see how it would work of going back and forth. When I start the process of getting it to actually load onto the bobbin, it does not work. And I don't know why or how. I literally just got very lucky the first time, and it worked. Like, I was doing this and I was like, oh, it's not working, it's not working. Then suddenly it worked. So first I'm going to spend some time off camera. I'm going to stop the video, but for the sake of sharing my struggle with you, I'm going to try and I'm going to do it off camera, but I'm going to, sorry, for the sake of sharing my struggle, I figured I'd record what is happening. All the book says is that you can wrap it between the head or something. I mean, like, I just cannot get it to load. So I'm going to do that off camera, and we'll see how long it takes me to get lucky this time. Okay, so I'm hoping to show you here why it needs the long style of needle. I have redone my bobbin. See, my camera is not very well balanced, so this is going to be a little bit tricky for me, but I've rethreaded my needle. Rethreaded? Yeah, I don't know if I said that right or not. It sounded weird. So when it goes down, it has to go all the way down so low that it then shoots through and around that bobbin like a rocket. I hope that just caught. I might have to redo it as slow motion. So the needle has to go all the way down, and when I put in a standard length needle, it wasn't going low enough to catch up under here for actually catching that bobbin thread. And I realized the reason I couldn't find an open pack of needles was that I had used an open pack of needles, and The open pack that I used was actually a vintage set that is not the same as a standard universal needle. So I grabbed these random needles that I had that are a standard universal, and I will show you how long the new ones are. I'm going to switch my camera back into a different position. Okay, so first I'm going to unthread what I just threaded on my needle. I'm going to take the current needle that's on here off, and this is the needle that came with the machine. Honestly, visibly, it looks fine. I don't see any evidence of bending or breaking. And in fact, the cleaning that I've done on the machine itself has actually helped it. It is far shinier than when I bought it. So this is the original. And I'm not going to open a pack of needles. But if I hold it up, you can see it is quite a bit different. I'm trying to line it up as best as I can. It is quite a bit longer than standard universal needles now. So I have it where the tips are almost identical, and you can see there's a lot of extra needle going on here. So now is the moment of truth where I find out if my new needles are the same. If you're in a similar position, I got these, someone recommended this guy to me, Jon Halig. I ordered on eBay. This is the information, and I will put it in the comments below. Not in the comments, in the show notes. I'll put it in the info thing for you. This is who I ordered my needles from. He had other sizes. I went with 11 because why not? And I actually joined a vintage sewing machine group just to ask people's recommendations of what I can find. So the 2020s that I ordered are actually a tiny bit shorter. Sorry about my fingers there. But I think they'll work. I think it will work. I can sacrifice a little bit of space and they will still, but it is just a millimeter or two shorter than the one that came in there. The shaft is longer. I hope that doesn't matter. And then of course it is a smaller needle gauge. So it is smaller here in the shaft. Not shaft. I don't know, the main needle part? I'm pretty sure this is called the shaft. There's a name for this part, but I don't remember what it is. So this is a trick I learned when I was a kid. If you've ever dropped your needle down in your sewing machine, it's a disaster. And so I learned to always put like some fabric or something over. Sorry, I'm tucking my needle aside so I don't lose it. So I always set some fabric or something under my foot. And let's install this and see if it works. So it definitely does have a longer shaft. The shaft sticks out much more than the other one did. I'm trying to find the eye, kind of where the eye is on this one. And then moment of truth of, actually I want to remove my bobbin and redo it so I can verify if it's catching that bobbin thread. Moment of truth here. If it catches the bobbin thread, it is long enough. Move you a bit closer there so you can see. And it is long enough. So it also, I think these, even though they are just a tiny bit shorter, I think they will actually work better because I doubt I can get it to show on camera, but with the needle all the way up, I had almost no space to work with the other needle. Like it seems so high right now, and it doesn't seem like that little millimeter or two would make a difference, but I felt like I had no room to work, to thread the needle or to do anything with the needle, to put fabric under the presser foot. Like I just felt like that needle that came in it was so excessively long. And for the sake of seeing what we're dealing with here, let's see how it goes. So I am still struggling a lot with general tension. You can see how I'm getting those loops. It's almost like I need to, you can see those loops I'm getting here, and I'll show you the struggle I seem to be having. So this is part of the sewing machine tension, and it's almost as if I need to loosen it, get started sewing, and then tighten it down a lot in order to keep sewing. I mean, obviously you shouldn't have to adjust your thread tension after you've gotten started, but that's kind of how it feels almost. So I start sewing, and it's almost like I need to tighten it as the thread is going through, and you can see sometimes quite a change. It's already like too tight from before. Actually, I think I got a bit of a jam here. So what happens, yeah, it's got a little, it's almost like when I tighten it to the point that I can sew without loops, it doesn't sew well. But then, like, if I loosen it to the point that I can sew, I'm struggling with the tension. We'll just sum it up that way. So I'm really struggling with this top tension bar, and I mean, even for me to pull the thread out to thread it, it's snug. I'm having a hard time pulling the thread out in order to thread the machine. But when I get sewing, it's too tight to like stitch with. Or too loose to stitch with. Let me see here. You can laugh at me while I struggle to thread my needle. I feel like the eye on this needle is very differently located than the previous one. Okay, so let me grab a different fabric piece. I was going to get full. This is a kind of I got a couple of random pieces I was working on here. So let me see if I can illustrate to you the problem I'm having. Get my bobbin thread back up here. Ooh, that one knotted me up a bit. Didn't give me a lot of thread to work with. Okay, so let me see if I can show you the struggle I'm having. If I go to pull my thread, you can see, hopefully you can see, when I go to pull my thread, it's so snug, it's actually moving the needle. Like, I cannot pull working thread. So if I loosen my thread tension from the top so that it is able to come down without bending the needle, it's still a tiny bit here at the end bending the needle. If I pull it down to where it's not bending the needle, and I put my feed dog down and I start to sew, I get downright massive thread loops. My fabric is really skinny, so you can see I'm getting downright massive thread loops. I mean, they're like a good ½ centimeter or more. They're quite long. So if I tighten the top, I get better tension and those thread loops go down. It's got to work through some of the thread to get it ready. So that's kind of, you still see them a little bit. The finished item is less likely to have them. Let me work off the end. See, I'm back to where it's so tight, it's bending the needle. I can't pull it out to cut it off. But as you can see, well, on this, the thread is actually quite tight. So you can see a little bit how the stitches actually start to look a little bit more like stitches toward the end. Hopefully, you can see. So that's the struggle I'm having with the tension. It's either so tight that I can't use it, but it stitches loosely, or it stitches okay, but it's so tight I can't pull it away from the machine. I'm still working with that. Might just be kind of a flaw. I don't think it's in my threading. I followed the manual instructions for threading, but it goes across here. It says put it behind here, under this loop, and this is what's causing the issue. See, if I push this up and down, let's see if I can get that on there. And by adjusting this, you tighten its ability to go up and down. But, so yes, the new needles work. I will put that information in the space below in case you need to order from him also. The needles work. It just at this point is very much a tension issue. And it's not even a sewing machine tension issue as much as a learning curve, how tight it needs to be to work appropriately issue. So I'm going to keep working on that. While I was setting my camera up to upload everything to my computer so I could edit this video together, my sewing machine manual that I found and printed was right next to my computer. I was like, while I upload stuff, I'll read it. And I read some stuff that kind of fixes what I talked about. So the issue I was having where you have to push the little lever, it's so simple, and I feel like such an idiot. This just didn't cross my mind. You are supposed to push that lever when you need to release thread. So it is going to be tight, and then you push the lever to pull your thread out. So while you're done sewing, you're removing your project, you have to hold that lever with one hand and pull it out with the other hand. You have to do that. It's in the instructions. So while I was uploading some stuff to my computer, I decided to kind of play around with that, and it does indeed work. So it is still some fine tuning for the general tension, but that part, the problem is solved. The issue I'm having now is that I noticed the machine seems to be stuck in wanting to do the smallest stitches possible. Now, I had noticed that the feed dogs previously were completely stuck, and I put some work in like WD-40 and stuff into getting them going. So I'm thinking and hoping it's just kind of a combo of getting everything moving at the right speed for the adjustments. So I sprayed in some WD-40. I like treadled it a bit, get it running. I did it a bunch of different, it's a stitch regulator on the side. I moved the knob up, did a bunch of stitches, did it move down, did a bunch of stitches. You know, I just set it at all the different settings I could and just treadled the heck out of it. And I might have done a little bit too much of, I did WD-40 first. I didn't think too much of it. And then I did, treadled it a whole bunch, you know, kind of cleaned it out some. And then I did machine oil. I'm going to tell you right now, I can't say that anything I'm doing for fixing this machine is like the way to do it. I'm pretty much pulling stuff out of my butt and figuring I don't think I'll regret anything per se later. I'm making it work. That is my goal. There are probably better ways to make it work. So don't necessarily do what I do unless you understand that. My goal is to make it sew and to make it sew appropriately. That's it. That's my goal. I'm not doing like a full restoration or anything like that. So I did most WD-40, worked it a whole bunch, and then I did machine oil. And between the two, I may have overdone it because I was like, okay, I'm going to shut up the table for the day. I'm going to let it work, you know, let it sit, let it clean, and I'll come back to it. And when I folded the table back up, it started dripping from the bottom. So I may have overdone it. So I opened it back up to keep the oil and WD-40 kind of where I want. And then later today or tomorrow, I'm going to open it intentionally with like a towel underneath to catch all of that drippage. It was a lot of drippage. Like, I didn't think I went that crazy with it. I don't know if I released something inside that had some liquid in it somehow. It didn't feel like I did as much as I have already seen come out. Maybe I got carried away. But the problem with the tension with that little lever is solved. Hopefully next time I pop it open, it likes the stitches. I do think that part of the problem with the tension is that stitch regulator, because it's trying to do, honestly, it seems kind of like a made-up stitch size. The machine has numbers from 8 stitches per inch to 22 stitches per inch. 22 stitches per inch is a pretty small, tight stitch. And I think that it's kind of making up and I think that is affecting the tension. So I think until I can get that fully solved, I'm going to have some issues with the tension. The other good news is I'm pretty sure, I don't want to speak too soon, but I think I figured out the whole bobbin trick so that next time I don't have to spend like 10 minutes trying to get lucky to fill the bobbin. So now that's fully it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this quick update and have a great day.